Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I am changing myself.
Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Maqbool with you at PTV World. In today's show, we're going to be talking about the very important developments that have taken place regarding the political dynamics of the country. Of course, this is important, especially in terms of what has happened with regards to the Islamabad High Court's decision regarding the Toshakhana case, in which the sentence that was earlier given to the former Prime Minister and the PTI chairman has been suspended. And so we're going to be taking a look at what sort of a development is going to take place, particularly with reference to how the Supreme Court previously, particularly the Chief Justice of Pakistan, had also commented on the conviction and had talked about procedural defects, something that was, of course, criticized a lot in terms of how this is something that perhaps can potentially influence the matter and is not appropriate for the Chief Justice or the Supreme Court to comment on, with the Bar Council also talking about how this is inappropriate. But we're going to be also taking a look at what this means now in terms of the aftermath of the suspension of this sentence, and then of course the way that we've also seen the special court that has been formed to look into the Official Secrets Act, and the way that there has been a direction issued that the former Prime Minister and the PTI chairman be retained in a judicial lockup till he is produced tomorrow in the Cypher case, something in which of course him and the former foreign minister and the vice chairman of the PTI was also convicted and has been also under the investigation. This is important, especially in terms of the past, in which we have seen a number of developments take place, including how the previous principal secretary has also spoken about the kind of intent that was involved in the way that the cipher was used, and the way that it became part of the narrative of the PTI and the former Prime Minister, particularly after his ouster, blaming of course the involvement of the US, and then of course with reference to the ruling elite that then came into power, and how he also accused them of being involved in conspiracy to remove him from power. Of course, this is an important case that is going to be then proceeded forward, taking a look at exactly what sort of development is going to take place and what this means in terms of the simultaneous developments of the number of cases that have been going on, and then of course whether or not we're going to be seeing important people such as the principal secretary also be part of the case. And there is of course also reports that he is not going to be an approver, but is going to be part of the prosecution witness. So we're going to take a look at all of these developments and discuss further how this is going to impact the legal course and what sort of options also exist, particularly post-September. For this, of course, as always, I've been joined in the studios by senior analyst Farrukh Pitafi and Faisal. We've also been joined online by Barrister Safi, Ghauri, who's a legal expert and political analyst, and Mr. Muneeb Qadir, who's also a legal expert and political analyst. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us and being a part of the discussion today. And let me start with you, Barrister Safi, because this is an important development in terms of what is going on. And we've talked about the Toshakhana case before as well, and a lot of people have spoken about the way that this conviction of course has proceeded with. There is a little in terms of objection to what exactly in terms of whether or not there have been in fact a case where there have been corrupt practices, despite of the fact if there are any procedural defects or not. And I want you to also help us understand, now that this suspension exists, what sort of a move can we expect forward in terms of the legal development of this case, particularly given what the Supreme Court earlier commented on, and then of course how an appeal is also pending over there.
Thank you so much, Sana. Sana, I think right from the outset, I want to state that way too much importance is being given to the suspension of sentence. I think there's a lot of misinformation that is surrounding this sentence suspension, and I've heard very senior lawyers give shockingly incorrect views, and I just want to put everything in order. This is not my opinion. I'm fairly certain these are the facts. These are facts that I believe to be facts when I state them. So, firstly, when it
Okay.
comes to the suspension itself, the PTI through the lawyers Baba Rawan and Salman Akram Raja have tried spreading this misinformation that this also means that he can now participate in elections and that he's reinstated as the head of the party in PTI, and somehow his conviction has been overturned. That has not happened. Let me be very clear. He is still a convict. The only thing that has happened is that he has been given a bail because the court considered the sentence to be
Yeah.
very short. This happens fairly often in the high courts. I'm not saying it happens all the time. I am personally welcoming of such a development, because now this should mean that all those people who are languishing in jails for very short sentences should not be languishing anymore, and they should be given immediate relief. And of course, we can talk about how Imran Khan has been given this relief, whereas a lot of other normal Pakistanis have not. But reliance was placed on a lot of important cases. There was the Qaim Ali Shah case, there was the Chairman Ram versus Mohammad Nawaz Sharif case. And there is precedence to show that in cases of short sentences, sentences can be suspended. But once again, the suspension of a sentence has absolutely no bearing on the appeal. The judgment itself clearly states that the appeal will be decided on merits, and that this decision is not being given on merits. The judges in their judgment clearly state that they are using a discretion that has been bestowed to them by various judgments of the Supreme Court. They are going to use that discretion because they think, all right, fine, it's a short sentence. What's the point of keeping him in jail? It's not accomplishing anything. That's literally it. There is nothing else to read into this. And unfortunately, what I've seen from both sides of the camp, I've seen PTI, of course, spin this out of proportion by presenting it to be a grandiose victory, which it is not. It's not a victory at all. It means nothing. And on the PMLN side, I saw a lot of heavy criticism coming towards the courts as well. And I understand, of course, that they may not like the judgment that came out, but this does not mean that the courts were maligned and they were maliciously scheming against the whole process, and the Chief Justice was telling the Islamabad High Court on how to act. I think these were all fairly conjectural statements that we should not be giving, because understanding that institutional stability needs to be prioritized is more important than once in a while political gains. So yes, I honestly think this is not a big deal, and this is
Right,
just
and
how I.
Barrister Safi, I also want to understand, as you're explaining, that this may be something which is an obvious conclusion, or it's normal or common practice in cases of short sentences. But then at the same time, you also talked about other people who may also be given short sentences, and of course their sentences are not suspended. So I want to understand, in that respect, do you think that there is any particular treatment or relief given to the former Prime Minister?
Of course. Now, Sana, let's be very clear. In this particular case, I have been counting, and this is an unfortunate habit. I have now seen that this very court has given relief to former Prime Minister Imran Khan a total of 29 times. This was 28 before today. Now it's a total of 29 bails, little reliefs, little application grants that they have been wanting to get. Things that have resulted in a lot of jubilations within PTI. And on the one hand, we see that this has happened, and yet I want to point out the fact that when the first time the Chief Justice gave a simple adjournment, which was last week on Friday, I think I was on your show. I remember Muneeb was also with us. And I remember last Friday when the judge gave an adjournment, the biggest trend from Twitter handles led by PTI were that this judge is sold out. Oh, look, he's given an adjournment of just 3 days. This is the kind of behavior that PTI always does when the things they just slightly deviate from what their expectations are. Even if it's a small adjournment of 1 day, they start criticizing and they think everybody's sold out. And even today, even before this judgment, the most common things that were on Twitter were PTI saying, oh, look, Rana Sanaullah said that this judgment will be against Imran Khan. So Rana Sanaullah has paid off the courts, and this is what PMLN always does. They just buy out judges. And they're talking about that judge who has already given them relief 28 times. Constantly, a history of giving them relief, and yet they speak against him. And that's the problem with PTI. The problem with PTI is they always bite the very hand that feeds them. This is a history. It's not just with this judge. It's with every judge. It's with every general.
Right, I understand that.
They've repeated
Mr.
that.
Muneeb, when we take a look at this situation, I also want to understand that there is, of course, the kind of statements that we've seen in the past from the Supreme Court and the Chief Justice, which were criticized also in terms of what was said about the procedural defects in this particular case. And even then, there was a lot of response coming in, especially from the PETA quarters, of somehow also being triumphant and claiming victory. And we've seen similar kind of responses here. And I can understand why that's happening. But I want to know that now that we've seen the suspension and the possible influence that was being talked about, given the statements coming in from the Chief Justice, will this particular aspect be taken a look in that perspective at all, or do you think that that would be unnecessary at this point since it's just a suspension?
The thing is that PTI's very politics is based on creating misperceptions. So it's about peddling narratives, and most of those narratives tend to be fake narratives. So just like, my co-panelist Safi also just mentioned how the PTI legal team are creating this perception as if this is some sort of a legal victory for them. The Islamabad High Court's verdict, which came today, which was just a suspension of a short sentence. Now that's a routine matter. There's nothing new about it. You just appeal and you try to get the short sentence suspended, and you get that. Normally, you do get that. So it's not as if Imran Khan, the PTI chairman's conviction has been set aside. He still remains disqualified, although the detailed order by the Islamabad High Court that has been given today by the Chief Justice and its fellow judge is yet to be released. But fact remains that his conviction, the PTI chairman's conviction stands. So he's still disqualified for 5 years. It's not the kind of legal victory that it's being made out to be by the PTI social media team and by the legal team. And again, I would like to add that, the kind of defamatory statements that have been made on social media, particularly by PTI and PTI's members, against the Islamabad High Court Chief Justice, they are very worrying, because it's just been mentioned right now on this very program that around 29 cases there have been in which Imran Khan has gotten relief time and again from the Islamabad High Court. But the moment that the PTI's expectations are unfulfilled, as they have been unfulfilled today, they automatically try to insinuate as if the judges have been sold out, or as if there's a conspiracy going on around them. This kind of victim complex is extremely rampant within the PTI's narrative. I mean, it's very sad. The way that, Judge Mayu Dilawar had been bullied and been maligned, and there had been a smear campaign orchestrated against him for weeks now, after his landmark 5th August judgment, so much so that now he has been made an OSD from his position previously as an additional district and session judge. And Judge Mayu Dilawar himself mentioned how threatened he felt, how his security had been at risk, and not just his own security, but also his children and his family at large, and the way that he was bullied in the UK when he was there on a visit by PTI UK followers. So I think that PTI's credibility is at an all-time low, and they have themselves to blame for it. More so now that, they are trying to seek blanket relief. PTI's legal team is trying to seek blanket relief from all kinds of arrests. And that is what they have now, they filed a petition to the Islamabad High Court that Imran Khan should not be arrested in any case whatsoever. But, in an own goal, PTI's legal team has said that they are seeking relief from illegal and unjust arrest. But my question and my counter question actually is that what if those arrests are completely legal and completely just? Then Imran Khan should not get any blanket relief, and he's not eligible for it either.
Right, absolutely, and this is important, Mr. Muneeb, what you have raised, because this is something that I want to also explore further, because we're going to be talking about the developments in the Cypher case as well. But Farrukh, before that, in terms of how we have questioned previously, and perhaps rightly so on numerous occasions, the credibility of the judiciary, of the benches, of the Chief Justice of Pakistan, but in terms of what is happening at the moment, and in terms of how perhaps from both quarters we have seen that there may be unnecessary criticism or too much reading into what is going on. Do you think that we will be able to separate these two and figure out when justice is in fact being given and where unjust or partial practices are actually taking place, and how do we do that?
Right, Sana. First of all, I wanted to remind you what exactly was the impression we got from communications from PTI itself today. The first thing, the most important thing was that PTI is very happy. So logically what follows is that it is going to apologize to Justice Amir Farrukh, right? And that they have been actually slandering for quite a while, but that did not happen. PTI has this pattern because perhaps this is for the first time, if not the last time, that they came to power. They act stir crazy whenever they are under pressure. So we have seen that the PTI's own official handles actually kept on, carrying out this malicious campaign against the sitting Chief Justice of Islamabad High Court. And then we saw editorials being written by papers actually clarifying that his record does not support these accusations, but still PTI continued with that. Why would that be? Why is it that they are not apologizing today? It actually reminds me of the day when Chairman PTI, the former Prime Minister, was actually pushed out of power. And if you remember that Justice Bandyal and the justices who are actually in Supreme Court, they actually gave that verdict, right? That day in London, we saw that PTI took out a procession. And the kind of treatment meted out to these justices of the Supreme Court today who are being presented as the PTI's champions, right? That was also shameful. So PTI does this for a reason. PTI in the past have actually taken on various governments. It has actually come to Islamabad and sat for dharnas repeatedly. Similarly, there were other protests and there was never any consequence. So PTI thinks at this moment that because it is a populist political party, like Trump's Republicans or for that matter various other populist leaders, whatever it does, it can get away with. That's why they act in this manner. But the problem is now finally the arc of justice might be slow, but it bends in the right direction. So now finally they are facing consequences, and because those consequences have piled up, it is going to make them crazier. Today's verdict is something that is a developing story. You wanted to say something, Sana? I thought that you wanted to say something, but I will carry on.
This is an important aspect, and I want to continue in terms of what is yes, with reference to what is going on, especially in terms of how the PTI seems to be reacting to these cases and these developments. I then want to know that if we are able to question the credibility of how we have seen such comments and what has happened in the past, but do you think that potentially, even so we can argue that it shouldn't be the case, but do you think that this is something that does in fact impact the way that the courts actually decide matters?
Faisal, I think this is focused.
Sana, are you asking me?
Farrukh, it's for you.
Right. So I didn't catch the question. You'll have to repeat. I'm sorry because of the technology and the distance that might be. So please, very quickly, repeat your question.
With reference to how the PTI has been reacting previously and even now with the kind of decisions that come out, my question is, and I know that it shouldn't affect the case in an ideal world, but in terms of what is happening and what we've seen in the past, do you think that it does influence the way that we have seen these cases develop and how the courts react?
Right. I didn't catch the last bit again, but I will try to answer whatever I've understood. Look, Sana, in any society, when you actually create any kind of blind spot, this is exactly what is supposed to happen. When you keep on creating exceptions for various political parties, they will take things for granted. And eventually they ended up confronting the state and we saw what happened on May 9th. But this is precisely why they are in such a deep hole. And the problem is that they don't realize that while you're in a hole, you should stop digging, right? While PTI's chairman has actually found it prudent to actually surrender himself to the law, and I think that was a smart move on his behalf. His party members, just to please him, keep on doing stupid things repeatedly, and that is going to further complicate his case. At this moment, you know that in May 9th, case, 12 more sections have been applied, and one of them particularly can lead to gallows. Similarly, there are other, cases which are very serious. And today, when he was detained in the Cypher case, there too we saw that the complications are just going to mount. So right now, what PTI needs, especially its leadership, whatever is visible now, is sanity. If they don't have sanity, because right now they are the #1 topic on anybody's agenda, they should actually realize that by attracting more attention, they are complicating the situation for themselves. So in coming days, if they don't correct it, I think it is going to complicate the cases both for PTI chairman and all other leaders as well. Sana.
All right, Faisal, I also want to explore, especially in terms of how we've always talked about in September, that there are going to be certain changing and significant changes that perhaps will impact the PTI. And a lot of times that we have spoken about the cases against the former Prime Minister, the PTI chairman, this also has come up as a factor. Do you think that, especially in terms of the kind of developments we've seen today with reference to the Toshana case, the Cypher case and others, that things eventually are going to have a different outcome post-September?
Yes, I do see that. I think the way, obviously I have been listening to the lawyers, and during the weekend I met with the Imran Khan's lawyers as well. They see it entirely differently. They see it that they will be successful in obviously getting some relief for the PTI's chairman, and at the same time they believe that the further cases, I'm referring to the Cypher leak case, obviously we know that it is going to be investigated.
Is that true,
tomorrow.
Faisal, irrespective of what the bench looks like? Because a lot of the times we've seen the emphasis on the bench. Do you think that the outcome that is expected by the PTI is the same regardless of the bench, and they're confident about the merits of the case?
Merits of the case as well, and at the same time, Sana, obviously whoever is a lawyer of someone, of course he would always be positive about it, that he has prepared the case, and of course he is positive about it, that he will win it and he will bring out the positive outcomes of it. And the way,
which case, by the way?
I'm talking about the Toshana case, and as well as obviously they were already anticipating about the Cypher case as well. And Cypher leak case, of course it is very important for the attorneys of PTI's chairman. Here, Sana, I want to draw your attention towards obviously another factor. Of course, it is highlighted very much throughout the program, but I want to add in as well. This is related to the smear campaigns which have been running against the courts, our honorable courts. Obviously, we keep on seeing all of the political parties talking about and hailing the rule of law, and they want the rule of law in the country. But when it comes to, of course, the courts and our judicial system, they do not show any respect to it. I'm not, just simply saying about one single party. I'm just overall talking about all of the parties. Why I'm saying this? That only the modus operandi has has been changed this time around. Otherwise, this has always been happening from all of the parties. Why I'm saying this? Because 30 years ago, we used to see that these kind of smear campaigns Of course, we have the precedents where political parties, they handled with our judicial system very harshly, and currently, of course, there is one party that is running its smear campaigns on social media. At the same time, there is
Faisal,
another campaign which is being run against Supreme Court as well by another political party. So I think all of the political parties, especially when they talk about rule of law, they must understand that they all have to equally show respect to our judicial system, our justices. Of course, they do deserve the respect, and I don't see that happening.
By the way, let me spell out a caveat very quickly, Sana. When it comes to criticizing somebody on merit, that is something else, and I don't think that there should be any sacred cows. But honestly, the kind of language that is abusive language that was particularly used in this mayor campaign, and particularly I reminded you of one episode at the start of removal of the previous government, previous government. At that time, the use of shoes on pictures and similar kind of attitude, I think it is crass and it is really hateful, and it should be condemned.
Yeah.
Sana.
Right. Barrister Safi, I also want to explore now, of course, the development that has taken place with reference to the Cypher case. This is important because, of course, after this sentence was suspended, we saw that the special court directed that the PTI chairman and the former prime minister be retained in judicial lockup and be appear tomorrow in terms of this case. But I want to know first, this formation of the special courts looking into the Official Secrets Act. What do you think about that, and whether or not this is something that is going to help the way that we're going to be investigating not just this case, but potentially future cases as well? And then secondly, in terms of the developments that have taken place within this Cypher case, what sort of an evolution do you see within this particular case, and whether or not, when we take a look at this in parallel to the Toshakhana case, that both will have an impact on each other?
Right. Thank you very much, Sana. And Sana, now I want to explain the purported Cypher case in a lot of detail, because this one case seems to have more misinformation around it than any other case that I've seen. And rightly so, because all other cases are public cases. You can read what the court files are. If the prosecution files a case against you, if a judgment comes out, you get to read all of it. In this case, you will not get to read any of it. You don't know what that case is. You don't even know if there was a Cypher or not. You don't know what the contents of that Cypher was. Therefore, I'm using the word purported Cypher. We are just presuming that there was some Cypher that was leaked. Maybe that Cypher wasn't leaked. Maybe some information pertaining to that Cypher was leaked. Maybe there was no Cypher at all. Maybe there was an issue pertaining to diplomatic communications that were made. So the Official Secret Act covers some very important things, and those important things are our diplomatic communication with and sensitive diplomatic communications that we have with other states. So this may be the US and all other countries in the world, and they all subscribe by international conventions known as the Vienna Convention. Now, understanding the importance of this is paramount, because until and unless we understand the importance of this, we cannot progress and we cannot proceed with understanding what this case is about. So for instance, I'm a lawyer, or I could be a doctor, or whatever. I could have one of those professions. When it comes to me, no authority in the world can force me to go and tell them what my communication with my client was. As a doctor, I take an oath. As a lawyer, I take an oath. These are confidential things. Similarly, what diplomats talk about is also confidential. That's it. This goes without saying that what they're discussing is supposed to be kept under wraps. It could be very bad. It could be very good. I could be telling my client, oh, you're going to get in deep trouble. Whatever, this is confidential. Now, if we start taking out confidential information that diplomats have amongst each other, nobody will respect Pakistani diplomats. They will think of them as those tall tellers who go and just spill out all the secrets. Nobody would talk to them again. Pakistan will suffer and get isolated diplomatically, like it has. It has been isolated diplomatically because of these problems. Now let's understand what the purported Cypher issue is. The purported Cypher issue is very simply that you were presented with certain information that information gets marked confidential and eyes only. Eyes only. It is important to understand that even the Prime Minister of Pakistan cannot retain a letter of that cipher, or whatever official secret document there is that is marked as confidential. What happens is a joint secretary takes it to the Prime Minister, he sees it and he's informed what it is, and then he goes back. That's it. That is the extent of what the Prime Minister's powers are. It is also given to the Chief of Army Staff, to the DGMO, and to the DGISI. Just 4 eyes get to see what it is. In Imran Khan's case, as per his own admission, now this is not me saying anything, it is him saying that he took an official secret document and then he lost it. Firstly, he could not take it. Secondly, losing it is the worst thing imaginable. What do you mean? You are losing classified government documents. You might as well be losing our nuclear codes at that state. The problem is we need to protect our state secrets. And it is not about what the content of that cipher was. For all we know, maybe that cipher was talking about what the weather was. That's immaterial, what the content was. The fact is that the state needs to protect what it says. So if the state says this is a state secret, it needs to be treated as such, regardless of what the content of that secret is. And what Imran Khan is doing is he's making a mockery out of our state secrets. Public,
right, I absolutely understand that, Barrister Safi, but what you're saying then is that this Cypher case is an open and shut case, and it's very obvious what's going to happen and there's no way about it.
Absolutely, because here's what the problem is. Once again, we don't even need to discuss if there was a cipher. That's immaterial. What is this? The fact that there was a cipher or was not a cipher is irrelevant. What is important here is that there was a breach of a state secret, of an official secret. Immediately mentioning that you know a secret, going around telling people that this is a state secret, but hey, I'm going to tell it to you, is in itself a breach of state secrets. I, as a lawyer, cannot go around saying, oh, Farrukh Pitafi is my client.
So given that, does this mean that the kind of recordings or the kind of ill intent that is being talked about in terms of how the cipher was interpreted and used is sort of irrelevant?
That's the kind of thing. So let's say Farrukh Pitafi is my client, right? Let's just look at it from a lawyer-client perspective. Farrukh Pitafi is my client. Now, maybe Farrukh Pitafi said something to me, maybe he didn't say something to me. But if I go out and I say, oh, as Farrukh Pitafi's lawyer, I say Farrukh Pitafi is advocating for genocide, and maybe it was meant to be a confidential relationship, whatever, and it brings a back flag on him. He's not in a position to even say that this was not the case, because he is himself bound by the secret. That's what the problem is. The whole thing, every party in this is bound by secrets. Nobody can even come and defend themselves in this case. The DGISI cannot, the DGMO cannot, the Chief of Army Staff cannot, because then they would be breaching state secrets. And by him breaching a state secret, what he has done is he has turned Pakistan into a laughing stock in the international community. That is what the consequence has been. And that is what the consequence will be.
So I want to understand then, Barrister Safi, then exactly how will this case, how will we get closure? How will the public get closure about this then, in terms of who was truthful and what went wrong?
So for cases like these, the public does not matter. These are so one thing that we know is that there are certain cases that are beyond the realm of public. Even in the Panama Leaks case, if you remember, there was something called Volume 10. Volume 10 was never disclosed to the public. We don't know what was in that volume. Yeah. Certain things never disclosed, and they're never not disclosed because it is for public security. These are state secrets. We will never know what will happen in the Cypher Official Secrets Act case. We only know that Imran Khan has shot himself in the foot by himself saying that he's disclosing state secrets to you, the public, for the sake of winning their support. That's all we know.
All right, Mr. Muneeb, I also want to take your input in this in terms of now that given the fact that this is not going to be something that will be as apparent or something that the people will be privy to. So I want to know then, we've seen previously also that the kind of reactions that we've seen from PTI followers and the party workers, and even now how they react to the different developments in the case. Do you think that this is something that will be also easily accepted? Because if this is something that is not open to public, then they will be okay with whatever outcome is and not make a ruckus about it. And I also want you to comment on how the principal secretary previously, of course, has also spoken about this case. Yes. But I want to know the distinction in terms of him not being an approver, but a prosecution witness, and how that impacts the case.
All right. So first of all, I believe that this is an open and shut case, as you just questioned my co-panelist. Open and shut, I mean, in the sense that there's a lot of incriminating evidence against Mr. Imran Khan and PTI's role as a whole, the whole party's role and the party leadership's role in leaking or attempting to leak the content of the Cypher diplomatic cable for achieving their own nefarious designs for their own political electoral advantage. So first of all, there is that. I mean, the fact that the Intercept, which published, authored by Ryan Grimm and Murtaza Hussain, the contents or the purported contents of the cipher. How did it get to the hands of Ryan Grimm and Murtaza Hussain, under whose directions? Because the case for PTI being the source of the leak is extremely overwhelming, given the fact that both these said individuals, Ryan Grimm and Murtaza Hussain, had been campaigning for PTI on social media for months before the Intercept saga even got to the forefront. So we have to keep that in mind. Secondly, you just mentioned Mr. Azam Khan, Chairman Imran Khan's former principal secretary. Now, in a confession statement last month, he had declared that the Cypher narrative was fabricated. And he had detailed how it was done to give advantage to PTI. And, the former Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi Saab, he was also in on it. And the involvement of Mr. Asad Uman and other PTI leaders is also being investigated by the FIA. So, I mean, this coming from the chairman PTI's former principal secretary, I think this could be the undoing of Mr. Imran Khan's politics as a whole, which means that even if he were to get acquitted, which again seems questionable in the Tosha Khana case, the Cypher case, I think, as I've said, is open and shut. And so I think that closes all doors for him to be able to, emerge as a leader to contend with in the upcoming election. And what's even more incriminating for Mr. Imran Khan is the fact that he, right after Mr. Azam Khan's revelations, had said that Mr. Azam Khan is an honest man. So it means that the credibility of Azam Khan is certified by the man himself who is being questioned here. Hence, the role that Mr. Azam Khan could play here, doesn't matter whether he's an approver or not. The fact of the matter is that his statement that he recorded to the magistrate, his confession statement, holds a lot of importance, holds a lot of weight in the proceedings regarding the Cypher case in the future. So we have to see, I mean, the special court led by Judge Abul Hasnat Mohammad Zulkarnain, they've kept Mr. Imran Khan in judicial lockup, and they're going to be looking into the merits of the case, and they're going to be pursuing the case, and they're also going to be reviewing the case tomorrow. A lot remains to be seen, but all I can say is that the Cypher saga is not going to end very soon, and it is certainly not going to end in a good way for PTI and its brand of politics.
All right, and I want to explore that further in terms of what sort of a way it's going to end, and if it's so obvious and apparent in terms of what the conclusion is, Faisal, I want to understand that previously, of course, the first time that we saw the kind of reaction coming in from the PTI, we saw, of course, that there was a lot of talk about the PTI chairman or the former prime minister being the red line for the party, and of course, and we all know what happened on May 9th, but I want to know now, given the fact that, of course, he's been arrested again, and we didn't see the kind of reaction that was spoken about earlier, and not a lot of people on the streets as well. So I want to know that, given the way that this case is going to proceed and how a lot of it is not going to be known by the public in terms of what happens, then how exactly do you think that the PTI workers or the party in itself is going to be responding if this does not go in the former Prime Minister's favor, which seems to be the case according to our legal experts?
Sana, answer is in your question itself. Of course, if it doesn't go in the favor of PTI's chairman, then the reaction would be the similar to whatever we have been seeing in past and in near past as well. Whatever the verdict which was against him, of course, there was a backlash against the courts and the system, the judicial system of Pakistan, of course, on social media and elsewhere internationally. Of course, we know that they have quite a few followers who keep on appearing on different premier locations of the world. I must say, and I'm talking about the important capitals of the world. We will see that reaction, but we just need to see how the things move in this case. This particular case, as earlier is highlighted, and one particular name which appeared, it is of Murtaza Hussain, who is obviously New York based journalist with the Intercept, and as the name suggests of the Newswire, they are the ones who intercept different ciphers, who intercept different informations. And in this particular case, of course, Murtaza Hussain, his profile says that he is national security expert as well as foreign policy expert. To me, I'm pretty much sure that he has knocked on every door to find out any details related to this particular cipher, and that is how he has been successful in intercepting this cipher. Who did it? This is a huge question mark, and how it all happened, this is what we will be seeing in coming days. That would be probed from the PTI chairman or his principal secretary or anyone of his cabinet. That would be interesting to see in coming days.
Right, but Faisal, as I understand it, these questions are not going to be answered publicly. Is that correct? Will we know this information?
Of course, these sort of questions, they will not be highlighted publicly, I'm pretty much sure, but somehow in the verdict or in the judgment we will be anticipating in future, I'm pretty much sure that there will be something mentioned about it.
All right, Faisal, there is of course what our legal experts have spoken about in terms of how the Cypher case is going to move forward. But then I want to know, in terms of how we've seen previously in different cases also, there are possibilities of appeals, possibilities of different avenues that can be explored. Is this different in the special courts?
It is, of course. The name suggests the special court. Of course, tomorrow it is going to be all shifted to the Attak jail, and this is where it all would happen. And normally what we see that in other proceedings in Supreme Court or High Court, of course there are journalists present as well, and there are independent voices who keep on obviously highlighting many aspects, whatever is the proceedings are going on in there. But the special court, of course, it would be an exclusive court where we might not be seeing anyone who can leak it out, and of course the result would be different. Tomorrow we would not be having hefty amounts of information floating on social medias.
All right, Farrukh, I want to understand then that I understand the clarity in which our panelists are talking about this particular case and what may be the eventual outcome or conclusion. But then also, when we take a look at many other cases in the past also, which perhaps may have seemed obvious and apparent in their conclusion and the sort of evolution that they're going to be taking, unfortunately that's not always the case, and there are lots of factors and variables involved that change the way things happen then. Do you think that this is not the case with the Cypher case, and that this particular issue is going to meet the end that we're talking about? Or do you think that the kind of time frame possibly, or the number of factors involved, can potentially lead to a different outcome?
Right, Sana. Before I answer your question, which is brilliant, let me also reflect on two things that are suddenly very interesting. One, suddenly Raja Faisal has become literalist. On one side, intercept actually means that they are going to literally intercept something, right? Similarly, a special court has to be special, and that has to be, relocated to God knows where he was saying. But regardless, for that matter, I can actually register a website called A Priori News. That would not essentially mean that I was born with that information that I'm going to reveal, right? Names are names, that doesn't mean anything. I think that what is remarkable about this case, Sana, is that when the former Prime Minister was pushed out of power, at that time he kept on saying, brandishing a document, that this is the document that is there and it is evidence. Later on he confessed that he has lost it, and then something very interesting happens. Azam Khan, his principal secretary, has actually given his testimony, and after that also, the day former Prime Minister is arrested, next to it, suddenly this website actually releases the purported text. So what does that mean? But can't we actually connect the dots? Are we so childish that we cannot see what exactly is brewing? We can't see that what exactly PTI is trying to do all over the world, their narrative, their lobbying, their letters to various institutions. I think it is plainly very clear, right, in front of you. You can see that the whole purpose was to actually use it to leverage their position. That's why this letter suddenly got stolen or disappeared. And then it was the day the man is arrested, the next day of a reporter, by the way, he might be a very credible reporter, but I think that Muneeb is right. You can go to his Twitter handle, other social media handles, and you can see that he is sympathetic to PTI's cause, and suddenly that publication actually publishes that. So what exactly would that tell you? Would it not be, violation of Official Secrets Act? It would be, right? Similarly, what is the purpose? If it is to actually come back to power or get any kind of, bargain any kind of freedoms, then certainly it is clear that PTI is not, appreciating the hole that it is in. I think that there's a reason why we haven't seen any political government actually commenting openly on the cases. We haven't seen anybody actually coming out and supporting his cause. Lawmakers are lawmakers, they can be lobbied, but governments are not supporting his cause, right? So PTI has to appreciate the fact that at this moment, whatever methods it is employing are going against it, and they will end up compromising the security of their own leader. That is not acceptable, that is not advisable. That's why they should actually affect some change, and they should realize that leaking such documents will only land them in thicker soup. Sana.
Right, and Farrukh, you've spoken about the Principal Secretary's responsibility as well, and I know that he has spoken about this in the past. I want to know then that given the fact that he will be part of the prosecution witness, or of course giving his own contribution to the case, does that also mean that this is something that will also be taken into account in terms of violation of the Official Secrets Act, and then a similar sense of accountability will be put on him, or a different one?
Right, Sana, neither a court nor the state, right? I can certainly hope and agree with you that action should have consequences, and if somebody has violated the law, they should be actually, they should face the consequences. But will that happen? We still have to wait and see. But regarding the Chairman PTI's position, I think that this leak has really, really damaged his Cypher case, and it is going to, create extreme problems for him. Sana.
Over.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us and being a part of the discussion. Thank you, Barrister Safi, Ghauri. Thank you very much, Mr. Muneeb, for joining us and being part of the discussion. Thank you, Faisal, and thank you, Farrukh, for also being part of the debate. As always, that's all that we have time for. And we're going to be, of course, taking a look at how these cases and other developments take place in the country moving forward. So stay tuned to PTV World and keep watching the debate. We'll be back with you tomorrow at the same time.